His friend died in his arms, and then he told me,
not to be in the gang because it wasn't worth it. It messes you up. Look at me. I can't go out without having to watch my back. I don't want you to be in the gang and suffer what I've been through. When I was in the gang, it was hard growing up in New York. Lots of people hate, and most people grow up with just a mom, no dad to teach you how to be a man. So you have to learn on your own.
Shot the Vietnamese soldier. He was about to shoot an RPG towards us. Instead, it shot into the air. In the distance, the RPG hit and shot down our helicopter. Wow, what bad luck, I said. As my back was turned, I felt a sharp pain in my back. Noticed it was a bullet. I had been shot. While I was on the ground, helpless, I saw Daniel get shot on his leg, still trying to defend us. His face wasn't shot, but only saw it for a few seconds.
I look at the paper for a while and think to myself, where did she go? What should I do? I lay on my bed and cry myself to sleep till I can't feel love anymore. My mom yelled at and screamed at my father while she told him I'm not fit for his family. As I listened close to the wall, all I could do was hope they wouldn't abandon me and leave me in the chilling cold, which was as cold as icicles. The streets are cold and empty. I heard glass hit the ground as if it had shattered. I couldn't bear to hear my parents fight any longer.
Age 31, charged for first-degree murder, sentenced to 15 years in federal prison, 2 days until my sentence is over. My family and my homies are waiting me to get out. Every day I keep asking myself, why am I here, wishing this never happened. My name is Pedro, but my homies call me Ghost. I entered the Barrio Logan gang when I was around 10. My parents would always be fighting every night for something that wasn't even worth fighting for. Hearing them scream almost the whole night. I go to school, I get news that I'm not doing good in school, and I sometimes feel like beating up my teacher because I feel that she doesn't care about me. I can remember it just as it happened yesterday.
The year was 1989. Kajal was raised in a traditional Indian family where her parents planned out her life, detail by detail, before she was even born. Kajal was their only child, and they were never able to become pregnant again because her mother had become sterile. She was to go to school and marry a successful Indian man. As long as she did this, her parents were happy with her. They chose what school she would go to, dictated what friends she had, and told her what to do in her spare time. She was trapped in a nightmare.
I picked up the rat and looked at its side. There was an open wound that took up half of its body. I could see the ribs and intestines. As I moved it around, inspecting it for anything that didn't look right, I found the heart and lungs. The only thing that was holding it intact was the broken ribs covered in dry blood. As I continued, I smelled the unbearable scent that flowed into my nostrils. I didn't mind the scent and took my first bite. I felt the uneven bones crack in my mouth and the rough hair that was stained with dry blood. The intestines were chewy and hard to swallow. Somehow I liked it and continued to eat it.
My dad told my mom to come back. He missed her and wanted her by his side again. My mom could never say no to my dad, so she left. I was going to go. Then Gabby asked me, what was I thinking, and told me,
if you go, you will for sure get into the gang. And if you do that, then you would be walking out on your son. You'll miss seeing him grow, miss him take his first steps, say his first words, first day of school, and miss him slowly becoming a man. If you leave back to LA, you'll miss all that.
When you walk inside the room, I smell the scent of beer. As it quickly crawls up my nose, I am filled with fear. You yell my mother's name, she comes running, afraid because as more time passes, the more your anger rises. I watch you two in the living room and retreat a little farther into my hiding spot. You ask her what's for dinner. She brings you the food, but it's not hot. You throw the plate against the wall and hit her with great strength. She falls to the floor. To the floor she falls. I quietly start to cry and cry and cry.
I was rushed to the hospital, lying in the back of an ambulance. I saw blood dripping down from my ribs. My t-shirt was filled with blood. A doctor got some twisted clamps and stuck them in me. My ribs were killing me. I started to clench my arm harder and harder every time the doctor stuck his tweezer clamps in my rib. It felt like sticking a hot iron in my chest.
A few days later, things started to cool down, so I went to do some business out of town. What I didn't realize was that it was a bad omen, a gangster from Logan walking into Sherman. I knew stepping in was a no-life chance, but I had to go talk with my insurance. Me and the homie were at the place. None of us really knew each other's face, and we had to quickly pick up the pace. As soon as we left, four guys came up. They knew who we were, and there was no love. I ran, but the homie couldn't run real far, so they shot him dead in front of his car. When they came back, I reached for my gun. I fired a few shots, but only killed one. They lost me, and I hopped in my ride, but some fools came by and shot me in my right side.
On August 6, 1945, the people of Hiroshima, Japan turned their eyes towards the sky to see a B-29 bomber plane flying overhead. The Japanese military thought that this plane was just a weather plane, scouting the area for an attack in the nearby future. Sadly for the citizens of Hiroshima, they were mistaken. It was a clear blue sky that Monday morning when codename Little Boy was dropped. Masaru, now Hibakushin, had slept in that day and was getting ready for school when the A-bomb was dropped. Masaru was less than a kilometer away from the hypocenter when Little Boy was detonated. This is his story.
Both were really close friends of mine. We grew up together. He was a close friend of mine, so I asked him for the story. Hager told me Treg was walking to his cousin's house at about 8 p.m. He seen a car rolling by slowly but didn't pay much attention to it. He kept walking. They told me that Treg was expecting something to happen, something bad, but ignored it. When Treg was walking and looked back, gunshots fled east, and he ran. In the corner, they caught him slipping and shot him 12 times. In his chest 4 times, in his head twice, his stomach 4 times, and in his shoulders twice. Treg never expected it. Expected it was going to be him.
Everything in El Salvador is full of violence. I just want to get away from it all. Everyone has fear in their eyes. They all wonder if some of the MS-13 gang members will come knocking on their doors asking for money. Or when they are on the bus, if they'll get shot at for no reason. I don't want to be like them, but how do I tell my dad?
I stood there watching them walk in, one by one. They looked fragile and weak already. But I knew that once they were here long enough, they wouldn't even look human anymore, just shells of their former selves. I saw the others kicking and throwing heavy blows at them as the sufferers entered. I wondered if I should do the same. The others started glaring at me as if it were a sin not to beat those poor unfortunate souls. So, reluctantly, I began to beat them. The younger ones, with tears flowing down their faces, looked around frantically, as if waiting for someone to come and save them from this terrible experience. But the dull glint off the semi-automatic strapped to the shoulders of the guards erased any gleam of hope.
Once upon a time, pugs ruled all of India. Out of all pugs in India, it was time for 2 beautiful pugs to get married. In India, their marriages are arranged due to family tradition. Arranged marriages are also used for lasting long and forming a family.
My hands began bleeding too, caking old scars. It was the first time I smelled the blood in ages. I've gotten used to it here. We could make a river with the blood and tears shed in this factory. I sucked off my fingers, hating their power over me as I tasted the iron on my tongue, clogging my throat. Blood on the carpets was not an option. Shyam's satisfied smiling at our suffering haunted the shadows, and I've worked and worked, kept pressing on. My carpet was finished and I cut the loose thread. pulled a few from the batch and stuffed them in my braid as we were unlocked from the looms, certain that no one saw me. I looked back to the shadows where Shyam had been, but only saw darkness.